Umbrellas, 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 umbrellas. This quote from Cadet Division Head Trevor Schofield is completely unrelated to this chapel, but I think it's always a good idea to pay tribute to the great orators who have come before you. There are a lot of things in this world that I would not like to fight. To begin with, I'm not a violent person, so on face, I really would not like to fight anything. That being said, I believe we all have a small voice in our brain that likes to think that if our backs were against the wall and the cards were on the table, we would be able to hold our own against most things. A fisher cat, for example. I could absolutely take a fisher cat one-on-one. I have the height advantage and the weight advantage, which I think I could leverage against its claws advantage. I'm not saying it would be a clean win, but if it went to the judges, I think I would get the belt. Sharks, on the other hand, I do not think I could beat. To begin with, I don't have the height or weight advantage against a lot of sharks, and the water is really going to cut down on the effectiveness of the taekwondo I took when I was 12. However, the thing that I would be most afraid to fight is, of course, the United States Army. At around 500,000 active duty soldiers strong, I would definitely be outnumbered. Additionally, the U.S. Army has 4,400 manned aircraft, which means they're very quickly going to establish air superiority, which would be surely detrimental to my defensive position. Another reason why I wouldn't want to fight the Army is that my dad has been in active duty in the U.S. for almost his entire adult life. It would definitely make for awkward conversation at holiday dinners if I went toe-to-toe with his long-term employer. The fact that my dad is in the Army has impacted my life in many more ways than just dissuading me from challenging the Army to throw down. It has taught me the importance of service and inspired me to commit myself to causes and organizations that are much bigger than I am. It has taught me the importance of discipline and doing the work that needs to get done. The stories he has told me from when he was a combat medic have taught me the importance of courage and what it means to risk it all to help your brothers. However, the biggest impact my father's military service has had on me and my family has been the many moves that we have had to embark on per order of Uncle Sam. In my life, I have moved 6 times at bequest of the Army. I have lived in D.C., Hawaii, North Carolina, Georgia, Germany, San Antonio, and Washington State, where I currently reside. People often ask me what it was like to move around so much, to which I usually respond, oh, you know, pros and cons, which, while not incorrect, is not exactly an exciting or useful answer. The reason I have trouble giving a more detailed answer is because until very recently, the question, what is it like moving around, was the same as asking me, what is it like to be alive? Moving has been such a constant in my life, I can't really imagine what life would be like without it. What gets even harder is when people ask me, which was your favorite place to live? Which is like asking, which did you like more, being 10 or being 13? Although I'm being a little bit dramatic, coming up with answers to questions like these has been somewhat of a lifelong project for me. And admittedly, despite all the time I've had to prepare a response, I find myself stumbling for words when the topic comes up. I haven't spoken about my experience moving around at camp very much, because camp has been a constant for me no matter where I was living during the school year. Even before I came to Belknap, I was a staff kid at Huckins, so spending my summers in New Hampshire has been something I have done my entire life. It struck me a few days ago that this was going to be the first summer that I can remember in my life that I would not be in the Granite State for at least a few weeks, and this realization saddened me a little bit. However, it also gave me a moment to reflect over my time at camp and all the places I've lived, and it's those experiences that I'd like to share with you today. But first, the Leaders Choir will play its first selection.
Poor old Granddad, I laughed at all his words. I thought he was a bitter man, he spoke of women's ways. They'll trap you and they'll use you before you even know. For love is blind and you're far too kind, don't ever let it show. I wish that I knew what I know now. When I was younger, I wish that I knew what I know now. When I was stronger, the can such a pretty show. It will steal your heart away. But But backstage, back on earth again, all the dressing rooms are gray. They come on strong, and it ain't too long before they make you feel a man. But love is blind, and you soon will find you're just a boy again. When you want her lips and you get her cheek, it makes you wonder where you are. When you want some more and she's fast asleep, but then she's twinkling with the stars. Poor young grandson, there's nothing I can say. You'll have to learn just like me, and that's the hardest way. Ooh la la, ooh la 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 la, yeah, yeah. I wish that I knew what I know now. When I was younger, I wish that I knew what I know now. When I was stronger, ooh la la.
I'll start with Germany. I was 9 years old when my family and I moved from our suburban neighborhood in Savannah, Georgia, to a small town of around 800 people in Bonn, Germany. This was the first time that my brother or I had been out of the country, and the change from the swamps and coastline of Georgia to the rolling hills of southeastern Germany was a big one. Despite being in a different country, I remember that I didn't feel out of place in Germany. Part of this was due to the fact that I was going to school on a military base. This was, and still is, the only time in my life where I have been surrounded by people who have had the same childhood experience that I did. None of us asked each other where we were from, but rather where we were just stationed. It felt good to be part of a community of people who had the same experience I did. Next, San Antonio. If moving from Georgia to Germany had been a culture shock, then moving from Germany to San Antonio when I was 11 was a culture earthquake. Part of this was probably due to the fact that I was a little older and more aware of my surroundings. Another contributing factor is that while living in Germany, we only had access to the Armed Forces television network, which means we weren't really keeping up with American pop culture. Jersey Shore? Totally missed that. Silly bands? Not on my radar. I made my whole 6th grade class laugh when I asked, "What is a Snooki?" Which from my perspective was a pretty genuine question. It is ironic looking back that moving back to America was the first time in my life that I felt like I didn't belong somewhere. Whereas in Germany, being a military kid had been the norm, now it was an oddity. It took me a long time to adjust to life in San Antonio, and this was the first I remember of making deliberate changes on how I act to fit in. I started listening to rap because the kids on my bus did. I wore cargo shorts because cool guys in my grade did. And after gaining a nerdy reputation in 6th grade, I decided I would try and play football because that's what most other boys did. While I don't regret most of those decisions I made to fit in, some like playing sports were positive additions to my life, I do regret my motivation for deciding to do them. I wish that I had chosen to play football because I was interested in playing the sport and not as some weird social capital move. That, and I regret the cargo shorts. They were plaid. Next, I moved to Gig Harbor, Washington, when I was 13. The timing was good for me. I had just finished 8th grade, and so I would be going into freshman year with kids from 3 other middle schools. It looked like I was finally going to skip the new kid phase. The strangest part about my move to Washington was that since football started in the summer before school, everyone knew me as a football player. This was the exact opposite of my reputation in Texas, and was quite a confusing role for me to manage. I spent the next 3 years trying to figure out who I was in Gig Harbor. I'm not trying to say that I'm the only one in high school who is struggling with their identity. I think most people are. However, what made things weird for me was that my dad had told us that he had talked with the Army and we wouldn't be moving for the foreseeable future. This was good news, but also scared me a little. In the past, I had always had an exit plan, but now, the pressure to find out who I was felt more severe than ever. And it wasn't until the summer before my senior year that I think I figured out how to deal with that pressure. The Leaders Choir will now sing their second selection.
Waking up early with dust in my eyes, falling asleep to the sound of the skies. I've got something to do, leaving some footsteps for someone to track, leaving today, not sure when I'll be back. I've got somewhere to be. My faith in words is dangerously misplaced, so I'm holding on to your arm, just in case. Been walking towards the sunset, what feels like all day. I hope that when I get there, I'm in a different place, and I can hear them calling, but I'm not sure what to say. You could be the sunshine, and I could be the rain. Writing a letter to who I once was, hope when he gets it, he reads it, because that guy's got it all figured out. Getting a phone call from someone I love, hate when we talk and my brain won't shut up. Gosh, did I say that out loud? If you see my brother, tell him I'm okay. I will make it back home in a few days. Been walking toward the sunset, what feels like all day. I hope that when I get there, I'm in a different place, and I can hear them calling, but I'm not sure what to say. You could be the sunshine, and I could be the rain. When you find me, I'll be standing on the beach, taking my shoes off to wade into the sea. And yeah, I hear them calling, but I'm not sure what to say. And if you see my brother, you tell him I'm okay.
And finally, as any great chapel closes, I'd like to talk about camp. It probably comes as a surprise to no one that what gave me the confidence and courage to deal with the pressure to iron out my identity came from my experiences at camp. Specifically, my LIT summer was a huge turning point in my life. What may come as a surprise to some is that I almost turned down my LIT contract. There were many factors that contributed to me almost making what would have been one of the bigger mistakes I've ever made in my life. I was intimidated by the idea of spending 9 weeks at camp. I had always been a 2-week camper, and I felt myself burning out towards the end of my LC month, so I worried if I had the stamina to go for the whole summer. I was also facing some pressure to attend a training camp for debate and had aspirations of starting a band. I had also just finished a very challenging junior year, and I wasn't really in a good headspace. I came to my parents with these concerns, and they were very frank with me that if I didn't accept the contract, I was going to regret it for the rest of my life. Boy, were they right. I learned more about myself during that summer than any time in my life. Whereas I was worried that I would be missing out on connecting with friends in Washington, I made some of the best friends I could ever hope for that summer. I met Brian Gould, Will Askew, Pete Marshall, Sam LeCompte, Cass Parker, and Trevor Schofield. And I strengthened my friendship with Nathaniel Klein. I can't imagine my life now without these friendships. I was worried that coming to camp would prevent me from playing music, but I played more music for more people in those 9 weeks than I had in my entire life previously. I was worried I would fall behind in debate, but the discipline and attention to detail I learned as an LIT propelled me into what would be my most successful season of my debate career. More than anything, though, camp revealed things to me that I didn't know about myself. I didn't know that I could give a pump-up speech about a game of bijou ball at a moment's notice. After I found that out, speaking up in school wasn't nearly as hard. I didn't know that I had the empathy to console a homesick camper. After I learned that, helping friends and even strangers when they were going through hard times felt natural. I didn't know I had the stamina to run periods for 5 hours and then go absolutely bananas during a div active. And after that, finding the energy to be productive after school and practice was easy. Fundamentally, that summer taught me what it felt like to be constantly striving to be my best self, and gave me a glimpse as to what my best self looked like. It also taught me that I had been asking the wrong question for a long time. Instead of trying to find out who I was, a question that I don't think anyone really has an answer for, I learned that I should be asking, how can I make myself better? That question also isn't always easy to answer, but in my experience, it's led to much more rewarding outcomes. I've now lived in Washington for 7 years, which is for something that for a long time I didn't think I would be able to say about a place. But despite all the moving I went through as a child, I've really enjoyed not having an exit plan. I'm continuing to learn things about myself and push to improve in all areas of my life. I've stopped focusing my identity on being a military kid and started focusing on just being me. And whatever that means, I'm not trying to fight it. My name is Colin McKay. I'm the Midler Division Head, and this is my 13th summer at camp.